I'm good, thanks. Leonard, nice to see you. Nice to see all of you, actually, here. So, yeah, a little bit about myself and about this presentation. So, as Leonard already told, I'm from Latvia, so, and I'm working there in Citadele Bank, but despite of what my t-shirt says, I'm a manager there, so don't trust my t-shirt. I'm not an engineer anymore. I didn't wrote any line of code like for 6 or 8 months, something. So yeah, and this presentation, it kind of result of my thoughts on scaling attempts in different organizations during last year. And as our keynote speaker, Goiko, already told, that scaling is a kind of hyping thing right now. Everyone, instead of selling just Scrum or, I don't know, Kanban consultancy, a lot of consultants and coaches right now selling Agile scaling framework like SAFe, LESS, and so on. And I've noticed that before you can adopt successfully any of those scaling frameworks, you need to take care of certain things, and I'm going to discuss those things during this session. Okay, so here, yeah. Here is a slide about myself, yeah, how I became kind of agile person. I don't know, is it correct to say that, but yeah. In 2004, I bought a book about XP programming, extreme programming, yeah. Has everyone read it? Okay. Probably I'm the only one. Okay, when you'll be in Riga, you can borrow it from me. The only problem it's in Russian because it was like almost 15 years ago. So, yeah, and right now I'm head of software development department in Citadele Bank, in Latvian one. In Lithuania we got a different IT department, so do not confuse these two for now. Yeah, oh, welcome. And now you know a lot of things about me. Yeah, I'm also kind of founded Agile Latvia organization back in the like 8 years ago. Let's learn something about you. How many managers are here? Raise your hands. Not so many. Okay. How many developers are here? A little bit more than managers. Okay. How many QA people are here? What? Only 2 of you. Okay. I'm the third one. I worked as a tester for 3 years. Okay. And who's the rest? Stand up and name you. Product owners, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and another question. How many of you are working using Scrum? Similar amount as the managers, right? Okay. How many of you are working using something else but still agile? Cool. How many of you are trying to apply some agile scaling framework? Good luck. So, let's talk a little bit about what scaling is. I found this magic, brilliant quote, yeah. So, and I've seen scaling like this in many organizations. Yeah? Like, we got one team, let's add another team, and then they just doubled not only amount of what they can produce, but also amount of impediments and so on and so on. And to solve this, actually those scaling frameworks were introduced, yeah? But why do we need this scaling? Usually there are typical cases. There are no agile teams. Sorry, I'm kind of sore throat, and so on. So there are no agile teams in an organization, and some big guy, CTO or CEO, wants to have agile teams. And okay, it's kind of very cool thing we can do, like safe or less and so on. Or we got one agile team in an organization, and we want more team like this. So let's do them all, let's convert them all into doing Scrum, and let's align them using some magical framework and so on and so on. And when in an organization already there are several teams, somebody, usually product owners, they want more alignment so they can predict and solve those dependencies across the teams and so on. And of course, yeah, the most obvious reason for introducing the scaling frameworks, they want faster delivery. So not deliver the big product by small chunks, but deliver many small chunks at once. So, but the general goal, to my understanding, is to create a scalable agile organization. Yeah, and when organizations scaling, when we're scaling our organization, by having more teams, fast growth, and better alignment between them, we want to achieve, have more products, bigger products, faster delivery. And I guess the best example of this approach is Spotify. And everyone around the globe talking a lot about Spotify model. And I'm no exclusion to this list. I'm gonna talk, I have 2 slides about Spotify model, so I'm gonna share my insights about this model, but at the end of the presentation, not now. So, and a little bit about my own scaling experience from one company. I'm not talking about current company. I worked for small or medium Norwegian companies of around 60 people, spread across Norway and Latvia, and one day our CTO told us, okay guys, let's do safe. And we did this magical big planning for 1 quarter upfront, and we got perfectly aligned plans. We got a lot of post-it notes and so on and so on. So our plans were just brilliant. I was really proud of my facilitating work and my handwriting there on those big flip charts and so on. But when we started to execute it, it appeared that each team implements only 30% of what been planned for this sprint. The same happened for the next sprint and for the next sprint. And entire quarter, during the entire quarter, we implemented only 30% what we anticipated to achieve. And then the managerial decision was, let's change a bit the way we are working. Let's do, instead of 3-week sprints, let's do 2-week sprints. But really, it didn't change anything, so the same 30% were happening every 2 weeks instead of every 3 weeks. And slowly, after 1 year, company moved back to old ways of working, so no alignment, no big upfront planning, and so on. And I've got a question for you. I tried to kind of draw the schematic of how I see traditional organization, traditional hierarchical organization, and kind of agile organization. Yeah, so there are information flows, there are things, those dots means where decisions are made. So in my understanding, for agile organization, the decision should be made as closer to execution as possible. Here in traditional orgs, the decisions are made on the top, and then just scaled down to the teams who are going to execute all those decisions. So my question to you, which organization is easier to scale? I got suspicions that this one, right? Because when the only person in the company should make all the decisions, and the team amount of teams is growing each quarter. So the amount of decision this person should make growing accordingly, right? So, and either he's gonna delay those decisions, or she, or the quality of those decisions will go down. So, the really important questions of applying the scaling framework is not how you're gonna scale, but what are you scaling? Because if you try to scale a trash can, you're gonna have multiple trash can, not Spotify, right? And I try to kind of extract those things which could affect our scaling framework application and so on. And those red things, those are things I'm gonna talk about them today, and this stuff I'm not gonna talk about it. I mean, let me explain. I made this presentation for Agile Riga Day in June, and then each time I'm giving this presentation, I'm throwing out stuff because there are too much things, and each of this aspect could, I don't know, we can create 10 of presentations about it, and it still won't be enough. So I'll try to highlight some key aspects of all these red things, and then maybe we can discuss, you can ask questions and so on. So hiring, why is it important? Because it takes time, yeah? So you cannot grow really fast without hiring new people, right? It's logical. But also you need to get right people for the team, and you need to get right people for the organization. You may find a brilliant developer, but who has values like which are really contradictory to your organization values. And also, if we would click back to this organization scheme, who's gonna make the decision about hiring? Is it also one person or it's multiple? So, and there are warning signs when you're scaling. So, first of all, it could be disorganized process. So, interviewers are not aligned amongst each other, yeah? So they may ask questions on the second interview, the same questions, which were already asked on the first interview, and so on. So, and different interviewers can dig into different areas and ask completely contradictory questions and so on and so on. So, second thing is the talent level is dropping. So, new hires have much worse quality than the previous. And the third one, people who involved, I mean not only human resource department, recruiters, but also technical interviewers. They are overloaded with the amount of interviews. So, and that's where you need to scale also. So, how we can do this scaling for hiring people? We need to involve more people, it's obvious. But there should be one important thing, it's consensus-based decision. So it's not one person who is saying, okay, we're gonna hire this one. No, there should be hiring committee which should have a discussion. So that's gonna give us alignment and also scaling. And I've seen it in several organizations, special people called bar raiser. People who are really not doing a lot of development, but who are trying to uncover what kind of new qualities this person could bring into organization, what his strengths and so on. So yeah, here's the basic scheme for scaling hiring. Yeah. So the key thing here is to have not single person or couple of persons, but really established process with common understanding how the organization or candidate walks through it. Sorry. Yeah, why bar raisers are important is that you might have a brilliant developer, really talented, but I've seen many developers with mini-me syndrome. Yeah, they value only things they know. They do not try to learn what other than their area of expertise they can ask about. So, and if you got this kind of person leading the technical interviews, you're gonna end up with a smaller, with the team packed with a smaller version of this interviewer. Onboarding also takes time, yeah. And if you need to onboard many people, you need to have a lot. You need to spend a lot of efforts, right? So you need to do two things simultaneously. You need to get person into the organization, and also you need to get a person into the team. And you need to organize this person learning, and you need to have a plan, and so on and so on. So, questions to you, dear people. How many of you felt joining the organization that there is a plan for your onboarding? Okay, I'm curious what felt the rest. Yeah. And if we exclude the part usually human resource department is doing, how many of you felt good about your onboarding into the development part of the organization? Not bad too. Okay. I'm gonna show you this one. It's a Trello board. One of Trello trying to kind of promote. It's a new hire onboarding plan. And then I have to say Spotify again. Spotify uses similar to this one, but with a little bit different items. So, and I think it's a really good approach because you can copy this board for each new comer into your organization and walk him through the process using this pretty visual stuff. Yes. But when we got a new guy in, or girl, sorry, in the organization, how can we find if this person fitting into the team, or which team he fits the best, or she? So there are several approaches. You may have, for instance, demo sessions, like within 3 or 4 teams, showing the guy what they are doing, and then discussing what kind of problems they have, and so on and so on. There are bug fix sessions, so you can sit together with him, and using pair programming or just giving him opportunity to fix the bug in the code, or whatever, maybe to start creating new feature. And these sessions are short, so one person could have like half a day session in one team, half a day in another, and in a couple of days he can learn a lot about several teams. Then teams also can learn something about him, his kind of coding style, his attitude to the job, and so on and so on. And probably only at that moment the decision which team she should join should be made. For instance, we do not have similar, in Citadel we do not have similar approach, but we are using things like for first months, a guy who joined us, he's attending not only at his team's daily stand-ups, but also with a couple of teams more. He spends like 15 or 30 minutes per day additionally, but he learns what kind of people are there working and what they are doing. Yeah, let's talk about information flows. I've got a very sad example of how information delivery is failing within a company. So in one company, there was a traditional Midsummer Fest in the end of June, yeah? And 1 year it was cancelled, and nobody told why. And then 2 months after, there was a big summer party somewhere outside of Riga, and so on and so on. So everyone was invited, but almost like only 100 of people decided to join this party. And the main reason was because people were upset that this Midsummer Party Fest was cancelled. But the reason why it was cancelled, because the company wanted to save money for this bigger event, but nobody told to employees that that's gonna be like this. Okay, so my point here is that you got a lot of information flows within your organization, but in order to deliver information to the recipients who really need this, you need to design them thoroughly. And also there are meetings. Meetings are the worst form of communication within an organization. So as soon as you can avoid meetings, please avoid. There are no the best one, because there are different purposes of information exchange. I tried this, but I've got 60 people in my department, so I gave up quite quickly. Also, when you're scaling, it's me, like calling for meetings, yeah, or sending emails. So when we're scaling up and using, for instance, maybe different companies are joining and so on and so on, there are 3 types of explosions, tool explosions. For instance, the company I worked for, they were using Skype for Business for communication with customer. They were using internal web-based chat, and there are also several groups for kind of hot topics using WhatsApp. So, and it was really unclear which channel we should communicate, which issues, and if something was written, say, in WhatsApp, there was no chance to find it afterwards in some corporate information systems. Also, no, actually, you know, meetings are not the worst form of communication. Emails are the worst form of communications. And the clear signs that something is not right with the organization is that every kind of questions go through your mailbox. And when business is sending you an email asking, when feature A gonna be ready, that's a clear sign that they do not use any kind of Agile board or issue trackers, and they don't care about using it, or they just, you just didn't spend enough time educating them how to use it. Yeah, so, and when amount of teams is growing, so does your email communications, your amount of meeting, and so on. Because the easiest way, yeah, to share the information, you just call the meeting, you invite everyone, and then like a couple of teams could spend 1 hour listening, 3 people are talking between each other. So, the best form of communications. There are several channels, yeah? So, before you want to spread some information, you need to decide which channel to use. Is it one-to-many. Usually managers are sending, I'm the manager, so I'm sending to my department. Okay, guys, please fill in the hours you spend this month and so on. Then I'm going one-on-one, asking, why didn't you fill this form and so on and so on. Then I'm writing, again, email. And then probably I'm showing the dashboard that, guys, you suck at filling hours. I'm not going to check it again. So, and when we kind of designing our communication channel, we need to think about how long this message going to last. So if you want somebody would kind of find 3 months after this moment that you did something or you decided something, you need to make it searchable. Yeah, so probably you don't need to write it down in WhatsApp or in Slack. You need to write it down also somewhere in Confluence or somewhere else. This Tuesday in Riga, we had in bank we had a special guest from Google. It was my predecessor, and he left the bank and went to London to work in Google. And he described a brilliant case of this highly searchable information. So in Google, they writing down everything about all kind of problems they are facing or investigating and so on. They're writing down what they did, how they look at the problem, how they solved, and so on. And guy was solving specific problem, and he was writing down everything he was doing. And then he tried to search in a Google kind of cloud of information if anyone else faced the same problem and tried to solve it. And the Google search works so fast that he immediately found the document which he was writing. So a little bit about decision making, right? So when the multiple teams are working together, they could have joint planning and so on, the meetings, and when they are agreeing about something, the phase of execution usually fades out. Yeah, they agreed, then went back to their own backlogs and kept doing what they promised to their product owner, right? So we need to focus on this phase too, because somehow when teams are working together, they focus, in some organizations, not all of them, they're focusing on their own needs, but not on the needs of other teams and so on. So, as I told before, the distance between execution and decision making should be as short as possible. So, when you decided that you're gonna do this and that, you should start doing this. And also, about feedback. Feedback is crucial in this process, and also in all the communication, feedback is most important thing, I guess. So, question to you guys: how many of you been giving feedback to your subordinates, to your team members, and so on? Okay. How many of you have been asked to give feedback to your manager? No, the same amount. Is it the same people who works in specific organizations? Yeah, I tried to get the feedback from my guys in my department, and it was quite interesting experience. The first answer was like, I asked what your manager should start doing immediately, and the answer was start dancing, listening Punjabi MC song. Yeah, so how we monitor this execution when we agreed upon. We need not only focus on the starting point, but we need to monitor execution through the whole process. So we need to decide what to measure. Maybe have a dashboard or something which could show all involved parties where are we at this. Because I got a terrible experience when we got weekly meeting, and when we were asking about how our test data scrambling is going, and like usual case, it was 90% ready 90% of time, but we never can start to use it. So, and also quite important things that we need to assign the one responsible, because otherwise there not going to be any progress. Technical excellence, also quite important for scaling, because if your team shares the same code base with another team, it may kind of problem to release this. My own experience, we got Norwegian colleagues, we were working on the same product, and we went on vacation, so we decided to do release after we will return. But when we returned, our Norwegian colleagues, they also went for vacation, and they broke down our repository. So it wasn't even compiling. And then we waited for 5 weeks. Yeah, we made it compiling, but still there were failing tests. Something was broken completely. So we were waiting 5 weeks until they would return from the vacation and so on. So in order to avoid this, you need to define what are your quality standards, not only for your team, but for the whole organization. Who's gonna maintain the quality and how? Code review process and pull requests. Maybe similar processes, maybe different. How you maintain the quality of the code. How your collaborative code ownership is working. So who you need to pull from each team in order to review your changes, or in order to kind of how fast you need to go through this process and so on. How different teams could work with this same backlog for the same product. So is one team picking all this juicy stuff and the second team just getting leftovers, or you sharing some interesting job between many teams and so on? How the technical debt is managed, because if one team just keep adding technical debt and another team removing technical debt, it's going to be kind of vicious cycle. One team is shitting into your code and you cleaning after them. And a colleague of mine, he left just for this reason, because he got fed up with another team just doing some quick dirty fixes and then throwing it to Riga in order to make it nice and maintainable. Also, how the technical expertise is shared between different teams. We, in Citadel, we organized a hack day, and the topic was having more expertise with ELK or ELK, Elasticsearch, Kibana, and Logstash product. So, and we got volunteers who were sitting and hacking this ELK stuff and so on, and we got team which didn't join this hack day, but they were sitting in the same room, and in the middle of our hacking session, guy asked, guys, why are you doing this? I can give you a Docker image for this with all the setup and fitting into our infrastructure. Why are you doing this? And we were like, and how long do you have this image? About a year. So it's really important to have these brown bag sessions or hack days in order to share this kind of information, what kind of expertise you have in your organizations. Okay, 10 minutes left. Oh, okay, about Spotify. When I joined the bank, during interviews, I've been told that, okay, we are trying to implement Spotify model in our organization. And this was brought by consultants from big American company, I won't name it, but if you Google Spotify model, you will find at least 10 references to this company. So they are selling it quite actively. And I talked with guys from Spotify who really worked for Spotify, and they were like, wow, where did they learn this? Because we haven't seen them in Spotify. But they're selling. And many companies are thinking like, okay, we're going to have this magic USB stick with Spotify model. We just inject it into our organization, and we're going to be next Spotify. Bad news for those organizations, because there is no iconic Spotify model. When they started in 2008 until now, it's 10 years. So this model was evolving constantly. And each squad or chapter or guild or tribe, they're doing it a little bit differently because they own personal preferences or experience or their agreements and so on. So for those who are interested really in Spotify model, there is a very good training made by Swedish consulting company CRISP by 2 Agile coaches who were working in Spotify for quite a long time. But I'll refer to this a little bit later. Yeah, and final thought, I promised you 2 slides on Spotify. So this is the second one. So Kent Beck. Who knows who Kent Beck is? First of all, he signed Agile Manifesto, and he is a kind of father of extreme programming approach. So yeah, he's saying that Spotify didn't invented this Spotify model by copying someone else. They tried many different things, and they stick to things which were working for them. So for us, there is no value in just blindly copying Spotify model and doing, and one of these kind of consultants' achievement in my organization was they just renamed teams into squads. And they also needed to do something with product owners, because we got product owners before, but they were not like Spotify product owners. So, and they proposed to rename them as squad leads. So, yeah, we are trying to rename them back into product owners, because there are several squad leads with no squads. They just have a product and no squad. My conclusion to this is that before you're going for scaling, you need to find your most time-consuming activities in your organizations, which are not directly linked into producing the code or producing the product. Like I already told, hiring, onboarding, communication, meetings, because meeting doesn't have anything with making software. You're just trying to share information or align your plans and so on and so on. You need to come up with plan, like what you need to change, how you're going to change it, who's going to do this. Then execute the plan. Yeah, remember this execution part is crucial to any plan, actually. And maybe after that, you need to pick your Agile scaling framework, if you need one. Yeah, 3 things I highly recommend you to look into. Yeah, first of all, book by O'Reilly Publishing, Scaling Teams, a guy from SoundCloud and from, I don't remember what kind of organization, but also fast growing, and so on. So second thing, I already mentioned training at CRISP in Stockholm, but they're doing also around Europe, so maybe you can invite them into Lithuania if you get enough people who want to learn it. It's made by Joachim Sunden and Jimmy Janlen. Brilliant guys, and it's today workshop. So you're gonna learn much more about how to scale teamwork. In 2 days you will learn more than in 40 minutes from me. So, and Australian guy Neil Killick, who's also kind of scaling without framework proponent. So he's saying that maybe you should wait for picking up framework. Maybe there are things you can do without any framework, just thinking about your processes and so on. So I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dmitry. Now we have questions and answer session. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand and I will connect our Menti tool. So we already have some questions from online and in the application. So any questions, just raise your hand and Kazimieras will bring you microphone. Okay, we have one question. You can read it and answer.
Yeah, I like it. How to avoid communication tool explosion and on organizational level when decision making is decentralized and every team starts using what is convenient for them. I think that there should be kind of managerial decision in this, because either it's voting for which tool to pick, or someone should choose set of tools. In the bank, we are using actually two tools. We are using free version of Slack for instant communication, and we are using Microsoft Teams for communication, which lasts a bit longer than a couple of weeks. So it could be searchable and we could review the whole conversation, because in free version they're erasing all the time all the messages and old files and so on. So I haven't seen that in any organization that everyone was happy about which tool was chosen for the communication. So unhappy people will be always, and also I'm not a big fan of Slack because it kind of, they want money for it. But you can have two tools, yeah, right? But you should describe what purposes you are using them for. Because Slack is for instant communications, we cannot hold any customer data, any piece of code, and any customer's IDs and so on. But Microsoft Teams, it's completely secured within our kind of cloud and so on, so we are using it for another purpose.
Okay, cool. Do we have here questions? Just raise your hand. No. One more question from online. No, it's my first test question. And one more question. How to note down and communicate decisions between the teams and avoid shooting ourselves in the foot?
From my experience, you shouldn't have too many decisions. It's better to make one decision and execute it than have 10 decisions on how your teams are going to cooperate, and you will never finish them. So start with one, then just have, oh, by the way, Spotify got a brilliant solution to this. Yeah, sorry, I'm referring to the company I never worked for, but they got a technical owner position. It's not a senior position, it might be also junior, but the guy is, or girl, is responsible for monitoring those decisions which affects many teams and maybe inter-team communication and so on and so on. So you just need to pick one person who's going to be responsible for communication between the teams and following the agreements they made.